Okay, so today we're going to be talking more about perfect square trinomials, and we need to know how to recognize where we can find a perfect square trinomials, because not every trinomial is a perfect square trinomial, only certain ones. So taking a look at these two examples, there are two main requirements for it to be a perfect square trinomial. The first requirement is that the first term and the last term both have to be perfect squares, which basically means you have to multiply the same thing times the same thing to get that result. So taking a look at the 4t squared and the 9, the first term and the last term, this does meet the requirement for that first step. This is a 2t times a 2t. So this is a perfect square for the first term. And the 9 is a 3 times 3. So that means it's also a perfect square. In the other example over here, it's exactly the same. That's a 2t. That's a 2t. And this is a 3 times 3. However, there's a second requirement, and this is the most important requirement. The middle term must be twice the product of one factor from the first term and one factor from the third term. Sounds complicated, but it's actually not. Basically what that means is if you take this factor, one of the factors from the first term, and one of the factors from the last term, and multiply it by 2, so 2t times 2 times 3, that has to equal the middle term. So 2t times 2 is 4t, times 3 is 12t. So this is a perfect square trinomial. Here it would not be. 2t times 2 times the 3 is not negative 20, it's 12. So there's no way that this is a perfect square trinomial. So it must meet both requirements. Remember, the first term and the last term need to be perfect squares, and the middle term needs to be 2 times the product of one factor from the first term and one factor from the last term.